Okay, so Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, the culmination of a 30-year franchise, and that was really not what I was hoping for at all. I think what we've got here is in the middle a tight and exciting movie, the kind of thing that you expect from Mission Impossible, and then a really self indulgent beginning, and also a really flabby ending. So the movie is 3 hours long, and that's just much too long. So Dead Reckoning, the prequel to this, kinda started to lean into the nostalgia angle, started to reference how long the franchise has been around. And Final Reckoning leans much further into it, and it's massively, massively overdone, I think. The pre credit sequence, for example, is over 20 minutes, maybe even 25 minutes, something like that. And a lot of that is archive footage taken from particularly the first movie and the third movie, and partly from other ones. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, in some way, mark that this is the end of the franchise, at least the Tom Cruise version, but a much lighter touch here would have been better. Some aspects of this were nice. For example, the character that they brought back from the first movie. But the attempt, for example, to tie in Mission Impossible 3 just felt a bit awkward. It wasn't really necessary. It didn't really add anything. So the character they brought from the first movie, that actually added something. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, just kind of overdone. And then the ending scene reminded me of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, when he goes to the multiverse where Reed Richards is leading the Avengers and Black Bolt and that character from the X-Men that Patrick Stewart won't stop playing, that's got so boring that I can't remember the name of Charles Xavier, yes, where Wanda goes through them like wet tissue paper and turns Richard Reed into spaghetti. And that scene looked like it had been filmed separately and then composited all together. And the ending scene of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning has that same kind of look. You cut from one character to another, there's a reaction shot. That's quite sort of disappointing that they couldn't come up with anything better for it, I thought. And this kind of sequel aspect, this necessity to finish the story from Dead Reckoning, just isn't handled very well. I think it's kind of what sinks the movie in many ways. So Mission Impossible Fallout, movie number 6, is kind of a sequel to Rogue Nation, but it's done in a way that's much more subtle. So I don't understand why it was handled so badly here. The movie starts off with this audio montage of what happened in Dead Reckoning, which actually reminded me of the beginning of the Two Towers in The Lord of the Rings. Basically, the entity from Dead Reckoning is going to start a nuclear apocalypse. The entity is slowly taking control of the weapon systems, particularly the nuclear weapon systems of all the countries around the world. And once we're past this awkward, self indulgent nostalgia fest of the first half hour or so, the middle part of the movie is actually fun. It's kind of the standard, what you expect from Mission Impossible, and that's a very high standard, what you normally expect. I particularly enjoyed both submarine sequences, starting off on the American submarine and then onto the Russian submarine. I thought that was particularly well done, particularly kind of trippy fun as they push the situation a bit more sort of out of control there. There are moments where it threatens to go a bit fast and furious at some points, like they give him an aircraft carrier, but fortunately they're relatively kind of restrained with how they give him the aircraft carrier. And the sequence with the planes, the red and yellow biplanes that was in the trailer, that's a lot of fun, but by that point you kind of know the end is coming and you've nearly been sat in your chair for 3 hours, so that was kind of six of one, half a dozen of the other. And in terms of characters, it was also sort of a mixed bag, I thought. I really enjoyed how they treated the character of Luther, so I think the last couple of movies, Luther's kind of been sidelined a little bit, but they really did some work to bring his story to a conclusion, shall I say. So that was really pleasing. I also thought Angela Bassett as the American president was very good. The whole sequence with her and her senior staff, I didn't know if it quite worked the way that they intended. It did give a nice bit of extra context to what was going on. I enjoyed Nick Offerman's cheeky smile when they were going through the intelligence briefing about what Ethan Hunt had done. So in that sense, introducing kind of the high level stakes was interesting. There was a subplot about a cult that wanted the entity to take over, but that felt a little bit to make the plot happen more than anything else. The whole plot point about Shea Wiggum's character was kind of pointless, tacked on, looked like nostalgia bait in the same way that the introduction was nostalgia bait, and the rest of the team sort of takes a back seat to Tom Cruise, which is how Dead Reckoning kind of went, how Fallout went a little bit as well, which is kind of understandable. He's the main guy here. So overall, this felt like something of a disappointment. I guess if I'm going to go back to the Mission Impossible franchise, it's going to be the Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, Fallout sequence. That's going to be what I re-watch. I guess I'll go back to the earlier movies as well at some point. Thanks for watching.